much every tax firm's busy season goes through the same year-over-year progression. Yep, as long as you get it in 3 to 4 weeks before the deadline, we should have plenty of time. Okay, that's a lot of stuff. And I gotta start extension estimates. This year we are laying down the law. April 1st cutoff if they want their stuff done. Farts. Okay, April 1st wasn't enough last year. This year, we're doing March 15. Cotton swabs. Very relatable, right? The trouble with cutoff dates, while they may be better than having no deadlines, is they don't solve the underlying problem that I can't guarantee turnaround time if I don't have control over the volume of what's coming in. I just let people bring me stuff whenever. How am I gonna guarantee when it's gonna go out the door? In fact, a firm owner shared with me recently, when they established a cutoff date of March 15th, 105 clients submitted their info on March 15th. And if those were all people that otherwise would have submitted before April 15, it's still the same volume of work and the same window of time from March 15 to April 15. You haven't solved the problem. If anything, you actually made it a little worse because the client's like, well, I got it to you by the cutoff. Where's my tax return? Now zooming out, if you're still filing tax returns on April 15th each year, if every single one of those clients gave you their information on February 1st, it would still take you until October 15th to get them done. Maybe not actually, maybe there's some compression there. But you get what I mean. If everybody gives you their stuff in February, some people still aren't getting their stuff back until August, September, October. So how do we fix this? The underlying problem, because it's a problem for us and how we plan our work. It's also a problem for the client experience. It sucks not knowing when you're gonna get your stuff back, when it takes forever, when it's ambiguous and they can't even get a hold of you. Try this on for size, see if it feels familiar. When your firm gets behind, let's say you said it'd be 2 weeks. So the client checks in 2 weeks. And my stuff done yet? It's not yet. And I just had to waste time on that conversation because we're behind, making me more behind. And now all of my clients want to talk with me because their stuff is late, making the whole problem even worse, making every project even more late until you get to October 15th and you say, it'll be better next year. Why am I watching this? Man, I have been there, bought the t-shirt. In fact, I have quite the collection. But how do we solve this? Here's an interesting approach. A growing trend is moving your firm to fully scheduled work. We recently spent an entire week exploring this on the podcast, hearing stories from actual firm owners who have made this transition, the pros and cons of doing so. I don't want to say I'm going to try to convince you of it today. Let's just come in with an open mind and try to learn what these firms are doing because it is a fundamentally different way to manage your tax practice throughout the year. So today, I'm going to run you through what it looks like for both the firm and the clients. What are the potential benefits, how to do it, and how to manage client pushback, because that's always what prevents us from making a change, right? So first, what does fully scheduled work look like? The biggest change is rather than doing the work whenever someone brings it in, you're doing the work according to a plan that you lay out intentionally. This means every single client has a time frame, a window of time, and clients have to have all the info in by the start of that date, that window of time. And by the end of that time frame, we'll get your return back to you. It enables control for the first time. So much control, in fact, that at the beginning of the year, you can literally plan out the entire year rather than just like hanging on to that bucking bronco and hoping it turns out fine. And already this idea, this whole concept is scary, right? The notion we're gonna dictate to our clients when they gotta bring us their stuff. But consider like why we're resistant to this. A manufacturing plant isn't open like a retail shop, but for anyone to come in and drop an order off and then they promise it like this turnaround time. That's just not realistic, right? And this issue, it actually gets worse every year. Now as we're getting 1099 brokerage statements clear back into April, it used to be that you had the info you actually needed at the beginning of February. Now, even if you think a return is done in February, it arguably isn't even advisable to file because of how late we're getting amended brokerage statements. But for some reason, even though busy season has now been compressed to maybe a month or less, even though the current state of affairs requires you to file those tax returns in like a month's window to get it done by the deadline, we still shoulder this responsibility ourselves, like it's your fault. Like when you can't get all that work done, somehow that's you. You're being asked to do the impossible, and it gets impossibler every year. We're stuck between our clients not understanding the changing state of things and us being pleasers who would sooner stay up all night than make an uncomfortable phone call. Now, does this scheduled work approach have flaws?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Will it annoy some clients if you don't roll it out the right way? Big time. But open your mind to this because there's actually just as many benefits to your clients as there is to you. And if the status quo sucks, something has to change. So let me run you through the 3 main benefits of this approach. 1, better turnaround times. Most firms will say something like, it'll be 2 to 4 weeks till you have your stuff done. And the risk here is when you don't have control over the volume of intake, if 100 people bring you their stuff tomorrow, you're gonna die trying and failing to meet that expected turnaround. And before you know it, all those returns are stacked up, and you're delivering late for the entire rest of the filing season and managing status requests from folks wondering where their stuff is. Am my stuff done yet? Putting you even further behind. It is literally impossible to get all that stuff out the door when everyone drops it on you at once, when you have no control of the intake. That's the problem we're trying to solve here. By taking control of the intake, those turnaround times can be faster than ever before because the client has our full attention during the period of time that we're working on getting that project out the door. And they're gonna love that. No more like you ghosting them for 8 weeks. Okay, benefit number 2, more control. You know the whole, it's nice, we can take off time in the summer thing? For many of us, that disappeared during COVID and hasn't come back since. And oftentimes, life circumstances even change, where it's like, man, it would be nice to maybe take a few weeks off in August this year, or in May, or something like that. With this scheduled approach, you truly are in complete control of not only your own schedule throughout the year, but that of your entire team too. And you can still flex stuff as needed. And things will come up, people will get sick, staff will change. Have a plan for all that. That stuff's happening in your setup right now. If that stuff happens in the new setup, just have a plan for what's gonna change. How do we pivot? 3rd benefit, sustainability. How the system works, the machine that you design, can be tinkered with month over month, year over year. It is a starting point for you to optimize what control looks like and how to improve upon it each year. It's an actual concrete process. This means it can be improved. How it's communicated to clients can be improved. A version of running your firm that's more planned, more intentional. Okay, let's get down to brass tacks, how to do it, and 3 steps. Number 1, create cohorts. We're gonna take all of our clients on the client list and organize them into like groups or cohorts. And all these groups will fall into the same block of time. Now these time blocks, these windows could be weeks, these time blocks could be months, it could be quarters. Think of it as the start date being the time block that is the deadline for the client to get you what you need to do the work, and the end of that time block is when you need to have that work out the door. During this time block, your client needs to be available for questions. They need to be responsive. And in return, they're gonna have your full attention to get through that work quickly, not this back and forth taking forever to respond to questions. It is a focused block of time, and this focus is an argument for actually making these cohorts a smaller period of time. Now, when we're first doing this, we might be a little nervous about locking that down to like, here's your delivery week or something like that. You may fall back to longer periods of time because it feels more conservative. There are pros and cons to doing this, but don't be afraid to do what you think will be best long-term because you know better than your clients what is going to be best for your business. Number 2, we're gonna build an annual plan. Now, we've been talking about busy season here, but this actually drives how you plan out the client's entire year. For a given cohort of clients, you're gonna have a deadline for when their info needs to be in to prepare the tax return, but you're also gonna have a deadline for when they have to get the info in to do year-end tax planning, or when you're gonna do an annual check-in call during the summer. If the client gets extended, their cohort dictates the days or the weeks before the deadline when you'll do their extension estimate. That is if you didn't do year-end planning. Whatever the things are that you do with your client throughout the entire year, when you do those, will now be anchored to what cohort they're in. And as with any part of this process, there can still be exceptions. There could be reasons to do something different for a specific client. But what cohort they fall into, that's now the default for how the rest of their year gets managed. Now, you're probably thinking, what about the clients that just want to come to me once a year and get a job done? Simple 1040s. For this scheduled setup, those clients are really hard to serve. But you know what? Those clients were already really hard to serve. And it's unfortunate that the current state of things doesn't serve these people well. If the return isn't complex enough to justify year-end tax planning, or anything besides just sitting down and doing a tax return during tax season, these are really hard clients to support. And I don't know that this system necessarily changes that. You could try to push all of the more complex work out of tax season to make room for these simple returns. But you're gonna have to decide if that means you're actually penalizing the clients who are bringing you the best type of work in exchange for making room for the hardest type of work to support. So the problem still remains. Where there isn't a great justification to extend the return, that's still a problem. That's gonna be hard to do. But I would say a more intentional approach like this at least gives you a better idea of the number of clients you could serve in that time frame. When you're gonna do them, when you're gonna need the info in, all that. Number 3, we're gonna create a communication plan. And this is so important. Whether this ticks off a bunch of people boils down to how you communicate it to clients. In fact, this is the whole reason why most people won't do it. They're simply afraid of the client's reaction. So arguably, how you roll it out is the most important part. And while we're sitting here talking inside baseball about this different workflow to optimize your tax season, the worst way you can roll this out is to go to clients and say, we're now going to be more restrictive about how and when we do the work. Instead, I'm actually gonna frame this through the lens of the benefits of my clients, because there are real big benefits. It's that our monkey brains are dwelling on the fears of how they'll push back. Those are the things that we're caught up on, and so they're front of mind, but they should not be the things that we are like putting on blast. We're communicating the benefits. So what are those benefits? Well, we're gonna turn around and work faster than ever before. You're gonna have my complete attention within the scope of when we're working through this project, and we'll eliminate the ambiguity of when we're going to work on it or when it's gonna be done. So if I'm rolling this out, I'm not just showing them what tax season looks like now, I'm showing them what the entire year looks like. I'm giving them a full calendar of milestones. I'm probably not calling them deadlines, I'm calling them milestones. By this date, you get all your stuff into me for this project and we'll start work on it and it'll run for this term. Whether that's tax prep, tax planning, advising calls, extension estimates, whatever it is. I can frame this as like a value add. We've now planned your entire year for the first time. That's what it looks like. And for most of our clients, this is all they want, to know that somebody's behind the wheel. It's when they don't hear from you and they aren't sure what's happening that they'll oftentimes try to step in and take control. And will there be some clients that will always try to wrestle the wheel away from you? Yes, always. And that's just worth acknowledging. There have always been clients who want to dictate to you how to do your work. But at the end of the day, they're coming to you not to prepare a tax return, but to manage the tax problem, to be the advisor behind the wheel. Some people are gonna get out of the way and let you do your job, other people are not. And the ones who are not, are just always gonna be harder to serve. Actually, one of the big takeaways from the week we spent on the podcast talking about this is for the firms who have done this change, they find that the folks who don't like it are the ones who are disorganized, who can't follow deadlines, or don't like giving up control. But the organized clients, they actually love it. It's structure, it's a more clear system. And aren't those the people we ought to be building for? Our A clients, the ones that we enjoy working with? If we're gonna piss somebody off, cool. I'll piss off the C, D, and F clients, right? Let's build the best system for the best clients. Never mind that all of this is only an issue for your current clients. If you bring in a new client and you say, this is how we do it, they're gonna be like, oh, that's pretty cool. That actually makes a lot of sense. My last person, man, I had no idea what was going on behind the scenes. And this is actually another example of how being stuck on changing it for your current clients makes you continue to take in new clients all day long on this bad system just because you can't get your head around changing it on existing clients. Okay, last, how to manage the inevitable client pushback, because there will be some. But right now you have 100 different questions and complaints like that you are imagining getting from clients. And the big one is people aren't gonna wanna have to wait, right? They're gonna like the date we gave them. If they got their info ready, they want their return now. And part of the solution here is just accepting, yes, but if everyone gets their info ready on the same day, is it my fault that I can't do the impossible? Because an equally crappy situation is when I do a bad job for all the people and it takes forever to get the work done. So being willing to take anything at any time, that's far from a perfect solution either, right? For this approach to make your busy season any easier, does it mean we're ultimately pushing clients back out of busy season? Maybe, but actually, maybe not. Check this out. 4 tips to overcome common client objections. Number 1, let's eliminate some busy season work. Eliminate work you shouldn't be doing during busy season at all. And if you can push some work out of busy season, you can actually give clients more or less the date when they normally file. So if last year they filed around March 15th, and this year their scheduled week is the week of March 15th, they're gonna be like, cool, yeah, fine. So one way of reducing the workload during busy season is figuring out some more things you can say no to. For example, cleaning up clients' books in busy season. Man, get that out of there. That could take the place of getting so many tax returns done. Make the rule, we're either cleaning it up at the end of the year doing tax planning, or we're cleaning it up after the deadline. Anything like this that you can find where you can set up a new rule to say we're not even gonna touch this in busy season. This may actually overcome the problem of potentially having to push clients back to get more busy season space. If you can eliminate enough things, maybe you actually don't have to push any clients back at all. And you can put them in a cohort that's gonna file them more or less when they did before. Now, don't make yourself the victim here. If you were working 100-hour weeks before, something's gotta give, right? So like either push other stuff out of busy season or do both. Push some clients back and say no to more things during busy season to get you down to something reasonable. Number 2, let's push back those business clients. Look for clients for whom filing later might actually be advantageous. In my firm, I would frame filing nearer the extended deadline as a privilege, because the reality is for most business owners, it's in their best interest to wait as long as possible to file for planning purposes. Most of them, once they understood that, they were actually appreciative. Now, there were a few of those folks that just wanted to get it filed for the sake of getting it filed, right? But I don't even advise doing that. The fact that it feels good isn't a reason to get it done, because filing later gives us more flexibility to plan around the following year. So if they won't take my advice, there's a bigger problem there. And I shouldn't be building my systems around people who will not take my advice to begin with. Now, third tip for managing pushback, push clients back selectively. So if you do have to push some folks back, where they're used to filing in April, but now they need to do it in May, the good news is you get to choose who gets pushed back and who doesn't. So if there's a risk of pissing somebody off, push the CD and F clients back. If they get mad and leave, the good news is when you bring in new clients, they just think this has always been the process. And in the meantime, you're taking better care of your A and B clients, right? Fourth, don't make this just about tax season. If we come in and we say, oh, we're really sorry, we're gonna have to push some of you out of tax season. That's not what this is. Frame it around what the entire year looks like now. Most people, particularly your good clients, just wanna know the plan. And to go from last year, when maybe they were disenchanted with how long it took to get things done, to this year, having a visualization of what the entire year will look like, all the milestones, for most people, that's a net positive, a value add. Oh, thanks, you did the work of planning out my whole year. Now, this is a big change, a lot to get your head around. There's 100 more things we could dig into on this, a bunch of questions I'm sure you have. It's why we spent an entire week on it on the podcast. We went super deep on the nuance, 5 episodes. Do you pick the dates for the clients, or do you let clients self-select the dates? We heard from firms that do it both ways. What if a client needs to get a refi? Then you move them up, you accommodate. What if a client's going on vacation during their time frame? Then you shift them. Like any system, it won't be perfect. But unlike not having a system, this gives us something concrete that we can improve upon and invest in year over year. And arguably for every new client we bring in for whom this is the norm, we're now delivering a higher level of service, right? Now, there's gonna be a good number of you who hear this and are excited and are bought in, but you're now stuck with, man, how the heck am I gonna get the rest of my team to buy into this? How am I gonna get help them get their heads around this? Well, start with this video. And if someone sent you this video to get their heads around it, welcome. Thanks for being here, like and subscribe. People are actually having meaningful conversations about how to run better firms on social media and YouTube, believe it or not. What a time to be alive. There's probably some inside jokes that went a little over your head. Like, why do I have a picture of that guy? I'm just glad you're here. But the next place to go after this is to go check out those podcast episodes for a deeper dive. But you can't do that yet because of this ad read. Roll the music, please. On the subject of doing less in tax season, this video sponsor ADP, they're gonna cut you big fat checks for recurring your payroll work to them. Because who likes doing payroll? Evidently they do, actually. Bunch of weirdo. Here's how it works. If you refer at least 3 clients in 12 months, you'll start making the money. You basically get a cut of the first 12 months of their payroll fees. Then in some cases, a 10% residual for the next 4 years. So you could be getting paid for referrals up to 5 years. At 1 to 4 eligible referrals, you get a 25% rev share for the first 12 months. At 5 to 9, you get a 50% rev share, and here the residual kicks in, so you get that 10% for the following 4 years. And at 10 or more, you get a 75% rev share plus the residual, all for not doing payroll. What a time to be alive. Okay, that's the ADP Accountant Revenue Share Program. Be sure to check out their site. I'll link it in the video description for the full explainer, which I have no doubt bungled at this point. As with all this stuff, terms and conditions apply. Thanks to ADP for sponsoring this video. Now, I highly recommend checking out the podcast episodes if you want to think through this more. And if you have experience with this, man, pop that stuff down in the comments. There's nothing more powerful than hearing from real people who have done it. That's why the focus of that week on the podcast was just hearing stories from people who have done it. You don't need me shouting at you more about what to do. Being able to hear real stories, that is powerful. So if you've done this, pop a note in the comments. And for some people, man, hopefully this gets you to a more sustainable spot.